Mr. Speaker. As everyone says, I stand to support this bill as well. It's a private member's bill. Sorry, private bill, not a private member's bill. The Westpac New Zealand bill. Now, there are a number of reasons why we support this. It is actually common sense legislation. It's absolutely necessary legislation. Labor has always supported any sort of financial legislation that we believe improves business efficiency and government efficiency. And it's also important for the strength of the local banking sector. I think it's been alluded to already, Mr. Speaker, that Australasia and New Zealand came out of the financial crisis reasonably well, and one of the reasons we did is because we had a very strong and a very sound banking sector. It is called the Westpac New Zealand Bill, and I just want to allay some people's fears because, of course, we had the Warner Brothers Bill before. People may think that a bill promoted by Westpac is actually one of these other insidious bills held over New Zealand by a large international corporation. Mr. Speaker, it is in fact not that at all. Whereas the Warner's Brother bill did this and it sort of eroded sovereign rights of New Zealand, this bill is quite the opposite. We support this, the Reserve Bank supports this, and we also understand that it's very important that Westpac New Zealand itself has a very sound and stable New Zealand operations, and it enjoys the benefit being linked to its trans-Tasman parent, such as, for example, access to capital. As mentioned, the Reserve Bank backs this bill. Like I said, it's just a common sense piece of bill. We're very much looking forward to bringing it to the Financial and Expenditure Select Committee so we can actually have a look at the provisions within the bill. And you know, as I said, hear submissions on it just to make sure that it's nice and robust, but we are supporting it. There is one point that I would like to make, and I think that Westpac should be aware of this, and that is the level of transparency that New Zealanders demand of their banks is actually very important. But before I do elaborate on this a little further, Mr. Speaker, what I would like to start by saying is that last week Westpac sent their KiwiSaver team up to Wairoa to help out some distressed freezing workers that had gone without work for up to 6 months in Wairoa. They did an absolutely fantastic job in providing budgeting advice and helping people apply some of the extreme hardship provisions that are under the KiwiSaver Act, and actually just providing a whole lot of general information to those people in Wairoa. So I would like to, at this point, thank Westpac for the work they did. It was absolutely brilliant, and it was hugely appreciated by the people of Wairoa, Mr. Speaker. We all understand the importance of a sound banking system. Of this there is no doubt in any quarter of this House. As I mentioned, ours held up very well, but I think that there is one thing that is most important, and I think most New Zealanders actually expect this, if not demand this, and that's a level of transparency and accountability. Labor tried to bring this to bear, Mr. Speaker, when we had our banking inquiry, because the vast majority of New Zealanders actually didn't understand what was happening. There was probably a very logical reason. This is when the financial crisis was at its height. The OCR rate was quite low, but the margins that the banks were charging were actually quite high. And the vast majority of people didn't understand what was going on. Labor called for a banking inquiry. It wasn't supported except by the Greens. That was hugely appreciated. And the Progressives, sorry. And what we did is we asked the banks to appear in front of us just so they could explain in plain English what was going on, how the banks were operating, why they were doing what they were doing, when in fact the vast majority of New Zealanders were suffering, but banks were declaring hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. Now, this was a very good opportunity to sit down in front of ordinary New Zealanders in an open forum and get the information out there. There was only one bank, and that was Kiwi Bank, who actually sat down in front of us and explained. Westpac didn't. And I would like to say to Westpac, as the government bankers, that we actually demand a level of accountability and responsibility, and especially that level of accountability and responsibility by the government's backers. And we would hope that in future Westpac does take advantage of any opportunity to explain to the public their methods of operation. As mentioned, we are supporting this bill. I look forward to it going to Select Committee. But I would also say to Westpac there is an element of disquiet in the country at the moment where their New Zealand CEO, who's earning about $5 million, I think, has just received a tax cut of around about $5,000 per week, when the person who cleans his office is getting about $5 a week. Now that's about 1,000 times less than the CEO of Westpac is getting, and I think what a lot of New Zealanders do have a level of disquiet, but this bill is a good bill. We do support it, and I look forward to it being in front of the Select Committee. Thank you.